Picture standing under an open sky thousands of years ago, surrounded by nothing but the rhythmic pulse of nature. No ticking hands, no digital displays, just the slow arc of the sun, the steady drip of water, or the silent turn of stars. How did ancient civilizations navigate their days, plant their crops, or celebrate their festivals without the clocks we take for granted? The answer lies in a lost world of ingenuity, where time wasn't counted in minutes, but woven into the very fabric of the earth and sky. Today, we're stepping into that world to uncover the forgotten systems that measured life itself, systems so precise. They built empires and guided explorers across oceans long before the first mechanical clock ever chimed. Think about the last time you glanced at your phone to check the hour. Now imagine your entire society relying on shadows stretching across stone, or the moon's face slowly shifting night after night. From the sun-scorched deserts of Egypt to the misty temples of China, every culture crafted its own conversation with time, a dialogue etched into obelisks, carved into clay, or floating in water. These weren't just tools, they were mirrors reflecting humanity's deepest questions. When does the river rise? When do the crops wither? How do we mark the moments that matter? The solutions they devised were as beautiful as they were brilliant, turning celestial movements into calendars and dripping water into alarms. What's truly astonishing isn't just the precision of these ancient timekeepers, it's how their legacy still whispers to us today. The 60 seconds in your minute, borrowed from Babylonian math, the sundial in your garden, a direct descendant of the world's first clocks. This isn't just history, it's a story of human curiosity carved into stone and written in starlight. So let's travel back together, tracing the paths of astronomers, inventors, and dreamers who turned the heavens into a clock face. By the end of this journey, you'll never look at time or the sky above you the same way again. For ancient farmers planting their fields, priests predicting eclipses, or kings declaring feast days, timekeeping wasn't just about convenience, it was survival. Imagine entire civilizations rising and falling by the silent rhythm of seasons, where missing the window to sow seeds meant starvation, and misreading the stars could unravel an empire. The Nile's annual floods didn't arrive with a warning bell. Egyptian priests tracked Sirius's rising instead. When that bright star first gleamed at dawn, they knew the waters would soon swell, turning desert into farmland. This was timekeeping as Lifeline, a celestial conversation where the sky whispered secrets of when to plant, harvest, or flee to higher ground. But beyond survival, time shaped identity. The Maya didn't just chart Venus to schedule battles. They believed gods rode its light across the heavens. Their elaborate calendar systems weren't mere tools but sacred maps linking human lives to cosmic cycles. In China, emperors issued official calendars as proof of divine favor. Get the calculations wrong, and heaven might withdraw its blessing. Every society wove time into their worldview, whether through Stonehenge's stones framing the solstice sun or Babylonian clay tablets predicting lunar eclipses to calm public panic. These weren't clocks in our sense, but living, breathing systems where astronomy, power, and spirituality intertwined. What's striking is how these methods became society's invisible scaffolding. The ziggurats of Mesopotamia doubled as astronomical observatories where priests tracked celestial patterns to schedule tax collections, early bureaucratic efficiency powered by starlight. Even labor disputes in ancient Egypt referenced water clocks to prove workers' shifts. Time governed everything from when sailors could safely cross the Mediterranean to when Persian couriers changed horses at relay stations. Without standardized hours, cultures developed remarkably consistent systems. Sundials in Greece measured courtroom speeches, while incense clocks in China timed meditation sessions with aromatic precision. Each solution reflected its people's priorities, whether justice, commerce, or inner peace. These ancient innovations reveal a profound truth we've since forgotten. Time was once a relationship, not a resource. Before seconds became something to spend or waste, they were threads connecting human lives to soil, tides, and constellations. The very words we use today, horizon from the Greek horizon, meaning to divide the sky, or noon from the Latin non ahora, the ninth hour of daylight, still carry echoes of when time was measured in sunlight and shadows. By studying these systems, we're not just uncovering old tools, but rediscovering a language that once let humanity speak with the universe itself. The earliest sundials were marvels of simplicity, just a stick thrust into the earth, its shadow tracing time like a silent finger across the ground. But don't mistake their rudimentary design for inaccuracy. Ancient Egyptians noticed something profound. The shadow cast by their obelisks didn't just move, it told a story. At dawn, stretched long toward the west, it shrank as the sun climbed, then stretched eastward as evening fell. This dance of light and dark became humanity's first clock face, with the obelisk itself serving as the gnomon, the part that casts the shadow. By marking where the shadow fell at different moments, they divided daylight into 12 equal parts, giving us the concept of hours long before mechanical gears could count them. Babylonian astronomers took this further, designing curved stone dials that accounted for the sun's changing path across the sky with seasons. Their sundials weren't static but adaptable, with adjustable angles to stay precise as summer shifted to winter. Imagine standing in the courtyard of a Mesopotamian temple, watching a priest slide a bronze marker to compensate for the solstice, an early form of daylight-saving time carved in stone. These devices became so essential that portable versions emerged, like the Roman hemicyclium, a bowl-shaped sundial small enough to carry on journeys. Even then, timekeeping was mobile, but sundials held deeper meaning beyond practicality. In Greece, they were placed in agoras, public squares where democracy unfolded, ensuring speeches and trials adhered to fair time limits. The very word sundial in Greek, skaphion, meant bowl, reflecting how time was seen as something to be gathered and shared. And in China, elaborate sundials shaped like dragons or tortoises weren't just timekeepers but cosmic symbols, aligning imperial power with celestial order. When the emperor's dial cast its shadow just so, it confirmed heaven's approval of his rule. Yet for all their brilliance, sundials had limits. Cloudy days left them useless, and nights were a blank canvas. This forced innovation. The Egyptians developed merkhits, star clocks using plumb lines to track constellations' movements after dark. Meanwhile, in water-rich regions, cultures turned to another elemental solution: the steady, unyielding flow of liquid through carefully calibrated containers. The sundial's weakness became the clepsydra's strength, a reminder that ancient timekeeping was never about one tool but an entire ecosystem of methods, each compensating for the other's gaps. What's astonishing is how these early experiments still shape our world. The sundial's legacy lives on in the very angles of your watch hands, designed to mimic shadow movements. Even our language preserves this ancient bond. The word clockwise mirrors the direction shadows travel in the northern hemisphere. Every time you check your phone, you're standing on the shoulders of those first shadow watchers who turned the sky's slow arc into a language we still speak today. While sundials relied on the sun's journey, another invention harnessed the steady, predictable flow of water to measure time even when the sky went dark. The clepsydra, or water clock, worked with elegant simplicity. Imagine a ceramic vessel with a small hole at its base, allowing liquid to drip into a second container below. As the water level dropped, markings on the inner wall revealed how much time had passed. But this wasn't just a primitive timer, it was a precision instrument. Greek courtrooms used clepsydras to ensure equal speaking time for legal arguments, while Chinese dynasties engineered multi-tiered versions with floating indicators that could measure intervals down to the equivalent of modern minutes. What made water clocks revolutionary was their adaptability. Unlike sundials, they worked indoors at night or in any weather. The Babylonians calibrated theirs to match seasonal hour lengths, adjusting the water flow rate as days grew shorter or longer. Meanwhile, in Alexandria, engineers added intricate gear systems that displayed the time on rotating dials, an ancient precursor to mechanical clocks. Portable versions traveled with Roman generals to synchronize troop movements, proving that precision timekeeping could be as mobile as the armies relying on it. But the true genius of water clocks lay in their cultural fingerprints. In Egypt, they timed the night watches of temple priests, their rituals synchronized to the stars. In China, imperial clepsydras were state secrets, their designs guarded to maintain the emperor's monopoly on accurate time. One Tang dynasty clock even used mercury instead of water to prevent freezing, an innovation centuries ahead of its time. Each variation reflected its society's needs, whether for fairness in Greek courts, military coordination in Persia, or astronomical study in India. Yet water clocks had their own limitations. Changes in water pressure as the vessel emptied could skew accuracy, and temperature shifts affected flow rates. This led to another elemental solution: fire. Across Asia and Europe, candle clocks burned beside water clocks, their wax markers indicating hours as they melted. In Japan, incense clocks released fragrant smoke in carefully timed intervals, turning meditation into a sensory experience. Together, these methods formed a network of timekeeping, each compensating for the other's weaknesses, proving that ancient ingenuity never relied on a single solution, but wove multiple strands into a resilient system. The legacy of water clocks flows quietly into our modern world. The very word clock may derive from the Celtic clocka, meaning bell, a nod to the alarms some clepsydras triggered when reaching certain levels. And the concept of time's arrow, moving inexorably forward, finds its earliest metaphor in that unbroken stream of water, marking moments long before gears and pendulums took over. These vessels didn't just measure hours, they captured humanity's relentless drive to quantify the unquantifiable, to hold time itself in the palm of a clay bowl. Fire flickered as more than just light in the ancient world. It became time itself, burning with steady precision. In candlelit chambers from China to medieval Europe, timekeeping took a form as simple as wax melting down a marked taper. These candle clocks worked on an elegant principle. The wax burned at a predictable rate, with notches carved into the side to indicate hours passed. A ruler in the Tang dynasty might glance at a half-consumed candle to know when court sessions should adjourn, while English monks used them to time nighttime prayers, their chants synchronized to the slow retreat of flame. But fire's role went beyond practicality. The very act of watching wax vanish carried philosophical weight, a visible reminder of life's transience, where each droplet symbolized moments slipping irretrievably away. Incense clocks transformed this metaphor into art. Picture a slender stick of sandalwood or agar wood, carefully calibrated to burn for exact intervals, its fragrant smoke marking time like an aromatic hourglass. In Japanese tea ceremonies, the changing scent signaled when to pour the next cup, blending timekeeping with sensory ritual. Chinese scholars arranged intricate incense coils in maze-like patterns that could smolder for days, their spirals acting as clock faces where ash traced the passage of hours. These weren't merely tools but multisensory experiences, time told through scent and sight, turning measurement into meditation. What made fire-based methods extraordinary was their dual purpose. A candle clock on a merchant's table timed business transactions by daylight, then became a beacon for night travelers when placed in windows. Incense clocks in temples served both monks and astronomers. The same stick that marked prayer intervals also helped track celestial events when clouds obscured the stars. Fire bridged the sacred and mundane, its light guiding not just hands but hearts. Even the materials carried meaning. Beeswax candles in Europe symbolized purity, while Tibetan butter lamps represented spiritual illumination, their flames linking earthly time to eternal cycles. Yet fire had its own language of limitations. A draft could accelerate burning, while humidity might slow incense to a crawl. This imperfection led cultures to look upward again, not to the sun this time, but to the moon's gentle glow. Unlike fire's fleeting dance, the moon offered a grander rhythm, its phases painting silver markers across weeks and months. Farmers from Mesopotamia to the Andes planted by its light, while Polynesian navigators used lunar cycles to chart voyages across trackless oceans. Where fire measured hours, the moon counted seasons, proving that ancient timekeeping was always a chorus of methods, each voice rising where another faded. The legacy of flame-based time still flickers in our language. Phrases like "burning the midnight oil" or "time is running out" echo an era when hours literally melted away. Modern candlelit vigils and incense rituals unconsciously preserve this ancient bond between fire and temporality. Even today's emergency survival kits include candles, not just for light, but as rudimentary timekeepers, proving that humanity's oldest technologies often outlast their replacements. Fire didn't just mark minutes, it taught us to see time as both warmth and warning, a force that illuminates even as it consumes. The moon's silver face didn't just light the night, it became the world's first calendar, its phases etching time into the collective memory of civilizations. For the Babylonians, each new crescent signaled the start of a month, with festivals timed to the full moon's radiant peak. Their priests tracked these cycles with such precision that their lunar calendar could predict eclipses centuries in advance, turning celestial patterns into a sacred mathematics. Meanwhile, halfway across the world, Mayan astronomers painted lunar observations in vivid codices, their intricate charts aligning temple ceremonies with the moon's journey. These weren't arbitrary dates but cosmic conversations where human rituals danced in step with the heavens. Lunar timekeeping shaped daily life in ways we've since forgotten. Polynesian voyagers steering by starlight watched the moon to gauge ocean tides, their wooden canoes gliding over currents timed to its pull. In ancient China, farmers planted millet during the waxing moon, believing its growing light encouraged crops to rise. Even sleep patterns adapted to lunar rhythms. Medieval European manuscripts describe first sleep and second sleep, with families waking at night to tend fires or share stories under the full moon's glow. The moon didn't just mark months, it orchestrated the pulse of existence from harvests to childbirth, woven into proverbs like the Maori saying, "The moon is the governor of all things growing." Yet lunar calendars faced a cosmic mismatch. 12 moon cycles fall about 11 days short of a solar year. This gap forced astonishing ingenuity. The Babylonians inserted extra months every few years, a practice called intercalation, while the Hebrews developed a 19-year cycle that kept lunar months in sync with solar seasons. The Mayans took it further, layering their sacred Tzolk'in calendar, a 260-day cycle, with the solar hop to create a 52-year calendar round. These weren't just timekeeping systems, but intricate puzzles where priests and astronomers balanced celestial mechanics with societal needs, ensuring that spring festivals always greeted spring. Measuring shorter intervals required even more creativity. The Islamic world divided nights into watches based on lunar positions, while Norse cultures used Eikt, marking time by the sun's arc between two mountain peaks. In India, water clocks were calibrated to lunar months, their flow rates adjusted seasonally. But perhaps the most poetic solution came from Japan, where incense clocks burned different scents for each nighttime hour, their fragrant smoke rising like silent lunar phases in miniature. These methods reveal a universal truth. Ancient timekeeping was never about precision for its own sake, but about harmonizing human lives with the universe's grand, imperfect rhythms, a lesson written in moonlight across millennia. While sundials ruled the day and water clocks measured the night, another timekeeping system stretched across the entire heavens, the silent, steady march of stars. Ancient astronomers didn't just gaze at constellations, they mapped them with the precision of modern clockmakers, turning the night sky into a celestial timepiece. In Egypt, the rising of Sirius signaled the Nile's annual flood, but priests went further, dividing the night into 36 decan constellations, each appearing for roughly 40 minutes before the next took its place. Imagine lying on a temple roof, watching these star groups rise one by one like gears in a cosmic clock, their movements dictating when to change temple guards or conduct sacred rites. Polynesian navigators took this celestial choreography to breathtaking extremes. Without compasses or charts, they memorized the rising and setting points of hundreds of stars, using them as waypoints across thousands of miles of open ocean. The Hawaiian star compass divided the horizon into 32 directional houses, with stars like Hoculaire Arcturus serving as celestial signposts. When clouds obscured their guides, they observed ocean swells reflecting starlight, a technique called wayfinding that turned the entire Pacific into a star-lit timekeeper. These weren't just journeys, they were celestial symphonies where every star's position marked both space and time. The star's role extended beyond practicality into the realm of myth and power. Babylonians etched star catalogues onto clay tablets, correlating planetary movements with omens, a celestial clock that also foretold droughts or wars. In China, the purple forbidden enclosure constellation symbolized the emperor's court, its stars mirroring earthly bureaucracy. Even Stonehenge's pillars, long thought to track solstices, also align with major lunar standstills, proving Neolithic builders synchronized time across solar and lunar cycles. This wasn't just astronomy, it was cosmic governance where rulers derived authority from their ability to read heavenly time. What made stellar timekeeping revolutionary was its scalability. Where water clocks measured hours and sundials tracked daylight, stars could mark epochs. The precession of equinoxes, a slow wobble in Earth's axis that shifts stellar positions over 26,000 years, was documented by Greek astronomer Hipparchus using Babylonian records centuries old. Mayan astronomers, meanwhile, calculated Venus's 584-day cycle to predict its appearances as both morning and evening star, their observations accurate to within 2 hours over 1,000 years. These weren't crude estimations but mathematical marvels, achieved without telescopes or precise mechanical instruments. Yet star clocks had their own challenges. Cloud cover could obscure constellations, and urban torchlight, even in ancient Rome, interfered with observations. This led to hybrid systems, Egyptian star clocks on coffin lids combined decans with diagonal lines to compensate for seasonal shifts, while Arabian astrolabes later integrated lunar and solar data. The stars didn't stand alone but joined a network of timekeeping methods, each compensating for the other's gaps. Their legacy still twinkles in our language. A clock derives from of the clock, but earlier forms reference stars. Medieval monks spoke of prime at first light or vespers when evening stars appeared. Modern time zones echo the longitudinal star maps used by 18th century navigators. And when you glance at your smartphone's astronomy app to spot Mars, you're tapping into an ancient impulse to let celestial movements, those original timekeepers, whisper their timeless secrets once more. Rising like stone fingers toward the heavens, Egyptian obelisks transformed sunlight into a grand spectacle of time. These towering monoliths, some reaching over 100 feet tall, didn't just commemorate pharaohs, they turned entire cities into sundials. Picture the shadow of an obelisk stretching across temple courtyards at dawn, its tip touching precisely marked stones that divided the day into sacred intervals. The Egyptians didn't just watch shadows move, they engineered them, angling obelisks to align with the sun's path during solstices. When the shadow vanished at noon during the summer solstice, it signaled the Nile's imminent flood, a celestial alarm clock carved in granite. What made obelisks extraordinary was their dual role as scientific instruments and spiritual bridges. The pyramidion cap, often sheathed in electrum, caught the first and last sunlight, symbolizing the sun god Ra's journey between worlds. Priests used these alignments to schedule rituals, their chants timed to the shadow's crawl across hieroglyphic hour markers. But the genius lay in their scalability. Smaller obelisks in village squares kept civic time, while the colossi at Karnak synchronized temple ceremonies across the kingdom. This was timekeeping as both communal utility and divine theater. When Rome plundered Egypt's obelisks, they unintentionally spread this timekeeping technology across the Mediterranean. Emperor Augustus erected an obelisk in the Campus Martius, turning it into a solar meridian, its shadow tracking not just hours but the year's progression on a marble calendar grid. On the autumn equinox, the shadow pointed directly at the hour passes, linking timekeeping to imperial propaganda. Other obelisks became focal points in Roman circuses, their shadows helping spectators gauge race durations. The very act of transporting these multi-ton monuments, a feat requiring hundreds of laborers and specially built ships, proves how highly ancient societies valued precision timekeeping, even when repurposing sacred objects for secular use. Yet obelisks had limitations. Their static nature meant they couldn't travel with merchants or armies, sparking demand for portable alternatives. Enter the shadow clocks of the Arabian Peninsula, compact versions with adjustable gnomons for different latitudes. Or the Roman portable sundial found in the ruins of Pompeii, small enough to fit in a traveler's pouch yet accurate enough to mark midday across the empire. These mobile timekeepers borrowed the obelisk's principles but liberated them from stone, proving that ancient innovation wasn't just about grandeur but adaptability, a lesson etched not just in towering monoliths but in the pocket-sized tools that carried their legacy forward. The obelisk's influence endures in unexpected ways. Modern city planners still use solar noon markers inspired by their design, and the Washington Monument's shadow traces a similar path across the National Mall each solstice. Even the term obelisk survives in technology, the obelisk symbol in typography, pointing readers toward important information. These stone giants didn't just measure time, they became timeless, their shadows stretching across millennia to remind us that the most enduring innovations often stand at the intersection of utility and wonder. Hourglasses turned something as ordinary as sand into a mesmerizing dance of time. Though we often picture them on medieval scholars' desks, their origins trace back to ancient seafarers who needed reliable timers unaffected by ocean spray or freezing temperatures. Picture a 14th century ship navigating the Mediterranean, where a sailor flips the glass precisely as the lookout begins his watch. The steady trickle of sand becomes the heartbeat of the voyage, marking 30-minute shifts with unwavering consistency. Unlike water clocks that froze in northern winters or sundials useless in fog, hourglasses thrived everywhere from Arctic fishing boats to Saharan trade routes, their sealed glass bulbs protecting the delicate flow of sand from wind, waves, and weather. The genius of hourglasses lay in their adaptability. By adjusting the size of the central aperture or the fineness of the sand, craftsmen could calibrate them for intervals ranging from seconds to hours. Medieval monks used miniature versions to time psalm readings, while naval gunners relied on larger models to measure the spacing between cannon volleys. Some were even designed as early alarm clocks. When the upper chamber emptied, it would trigger a bell or whistle. But what truly set them apart was their democratic simplicity. Unlike obelisks or water clocks requiring elite artisans, hourglasses could be made by any glassblower, spreading timekeeping beyond palaces and temples into workshops, kitchens, and schoolrooms. Beyond practicality, hourglasses became powerful symbols. Renaissance paintings often included them as memento mori, reminders of life's fleeting nature. Shakespeare's plays reference their turning as metaphors for destiny, while pirate flags depicted them as warnings that a captive's time was running out. Even today, the phrase, "the sands of time," carries echoes of this ancient technology, yet their legacy isn't just poetic. Modern egg timers are direct descendants, and the concept of measuring fixed intervals survives in everything from basketball shot clocks to parliamentary debate timers. Just as the last grain falls in one timekeeping method, another begins not with silent sand, but with resonant sound. Across ancient China, temple bells marked the canonical hours with tones that carried for miles, while Greek and Roman water clocks incorporated whistles that sounded when reaching certain levels. Time wasn't just seen, it was heard, transforming villages into living clocks where every citizen moved to the same rhythmic chimes. The hourglass's visual poetry met its match in these auditory timekeepers, proving once again that humanity's conversation with time was never limited to a single sense, but a symphony of sight, sound, and ingenuity. In the bustling heart of ancient Chang'an, time didn't just move, it rang out across the city in deep, resonant tones. Chinese engineers of the Tang dynasty perfected mechanical bell towers where water wheels drove hammers to strike colossal bronze bells at precise intervals, transforming timekeeping into a shared sensory experience. These weren't mere noisemakers but marvels of hydro-mechanical precision. The same water clock that measured hours also triggered the striking mechanism, ensuring each gong echoed exactly as the last drop fell. Picture merchants in the marketplace pausing mid-haggle as the noon bell reverberated through the streets, or night watchmen counting the late-hour chimes to know when to light the lanterns. Time had a voice, and it spoke to everyone, scholar and farmer alike, bridging the gap between imperial decrees and the rhythms of daily life. What made these acoustic timekeepers revolutionary was their inclusivity. In societies where literacy was rare, the bell's universal language needed no translation. The Song dynasty's Cosmic Engine Tower took this further, incorporating animated figurines that appeared with each strike. Drummers, announcers, even mythological creatures turning time into public theater. Monasteries adapted the technology, using sequenced bells to coordinate meditation sessions across vast complexes, their tones guiding monks through the day's sacred architecture. This auditory network created what scholars now call acoustic communities, where shared time synchronized human activity long before wireless signals. But seasonal daylight variations posed a fascinating challenge. Ancient timekeepers didn't rigidly partition the day into 24 identical hours as we do. Instead, they embraced temporal hours, where daylight and nighttime were each divided into 12 segments regardless of season. A summer hour might last 80 modern minutes, while a winter hour condensed to 40. Bell towers adjusted by changing strike intervals, slower in summer's long days, faster in winter's fleeting light. This flexible system reflected nature's rhythms rather than fighting them, a philosophy embedded in devices like the incense clock, whose burn rate could be modified with different aromatic blends for summer or winter use. The legacy of these sonic time signals echoes through history. Medieval European carillons borrowed the concept, their melodies still marking Belgian town squares today. The word clock itself may derive from the Celtic clocha, meaning bell, a linguistic fossil of when timekeeping was as much about hearing as seeing. Even modern emergency sirens and factory whistles unconsciously continue this ancient tradition, using sound to synchronize collective activity. These towers didn't just tell time, they created a shared temporal consciousness, proving that humanity's most enduring technologies often appeal not just to our minds but to our senses, connecting us through chimes that once united entire cities in rhythmic harmony. Yet sound-based timekeeping was just one thread in a larger tapestry. As cultures sought ever greater precision, they turned to the cosmos not for its grand cycles, but for its infinitesimal divisions, leading to devices that measured moments too fleeting for bells or shadows. The journey from celestial time to atomic seconds begins not with telescopes, but with a simple yet profound question: how small can a moment be before it slips through our fingers? Ancient timekeepers didn't fight against nature's seasonal dance, they embraced it with remarkable flexibility. Imagine a Roman sundial in midwinter, where the shadow marking the first hour stretched long across frosty stone, while that same hour in summer would pass in a blink of golden light. Rather than forcing rigid 60-minute divisions onto the day, they let sunlight dictate the rhythm, dividing each day's light and darkness into 12 equal parts regardless of season. A summer hour might last 75 of our modern minutes, while a winter hour condensed to just 45. This wasn't imprecision, it was a sophisticated acknowledgement that time itself breathes, expanding and contracting with the Earth's tilt. The brilliance of seasonal timekeeping reveals itself in practicality. Medieval monastic schedules varied dramatically between June and December, with winter vespers occurring just hours after noon while summer prayers stretched into lingering twilight. Chinese water clocks adjusted their flow rates with solstices, slowing the drip during long summer days and accelerating it through winter's brevity. Even Islamic prayer times, still calculated daily based on the sun's position, continue this ancient tradition of temporal elasticity. These cultures understood something we've largely forgotten, that efficiency shouldn't mean battling natural cycles but flowing with them. What's astonishing is how these variable hours shaped daily life. Venetian merchants knew to charge higher interest on winter loans since fewer daylight hours meant slower trade. Farmers from Persia to Peru planted and harvested by seasonal hours, their schedules aligned with sunlight intensity rather than arbitrary numbers on a dial. The very word canonical hours in Christian tradition reflects this fluidity. Prime, terse, and none referred not to fixed times but to phases of daylight, their observance shifting gradually with the solstices. This temporal wisdom found its most poetic expression in Japan's Toki system, where daylight was divided into 6 unequal segments named for natural phenomena like rabbit hour at dawn when animals stirred, or cockcrow hour marking twilight. Rather than counting minutes, people moved through these organic intervals much like tides responding to the moon. The seasonal clock wasn't just a tool but a philosophy, teaching that true harmony comes from adapting to, not conquering nature's cadences. The legacy of flexible timekeeping lingers in surprising corners of modernity. Daylight saving time, despite its controversies, echoes the ancient impulse to align human activity with sunlight. Agricultural regions still operate on sun time rather than time zones, and astronomers use sidereal time based on Earth's rotation relative to stars. Perhaps the greatest tribute comes from modern chronobiologists, who now confirm what ancient cultures intuited, that our body's circadian rhythms naturally expand and contract with seasonal light, proving those old variable hours were more than practical, they were profoundly human. As we leave these adaptive systems behind, we approach the crossroads where ancient ingenuity sparked a revolution, the moment when timekeeping broke free from celestial dependence and took its first mechanical steps. The very innovations born from observing nature's variability would ultimately lead to devices that sought to conquer it, setting humanity on a path where time would no longer bend to the seasons, but force the world to march to its unchanging beat. Beneath the Mediterranean waves for 2,000 years, a corroded bronze artifact held secrets that would rewrite history. When sponge divers discovered the Antikythera Mechanism in 1901 off the coast of Greece, they unknowingly pulled up the world's first known analog computer, a device so advanced it wouldn't be matched for another millennium. Imagine a shoebox-sized assembly of interlocking gears, its bronze dials etched with tiny Greek inscriptions tracking the moon's wobble, predicting eclipses decades in advance, and even marking the dates of ancient Olympic Games. This wasn't just a clock, it was a celestial prophet, its 37 precision-cut gears modeling the erratic dance of planets with accuracy that would stump medieval European clockmakers. What makes the Antikythera mechanism astonishing isn't just its complexity, it's the window it provides into a lost world of scientific ambition. X-ray scans reveal gears with teeth cut at exact angles to account for astronomical anomalies like the moon's elliptical orbit, a concept formalized by Kepler in the 17th century. One dial even simulated the Saros cycle, a repeating 18-year pattern of eclipses, allowing priests to anticipate celestial omens or sailors to avoid launching during ominous celestial alignments. The mechanism's front face displayed the Greek zodiac, while hidden inner workings calculated the positions of Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, turning celestial mechanics into a handheld theater of moving brass. But perhaps most revolutionary was its purpose. Unlike monumental sundials or water clocks serving public timekeeping, this was a personal device likely owned by a wealthy scholar or temple astronomer, proving that ancient Greece had industrialized precision engineering. Archaeologists now believe similar mechanisms were widespread, referenced in Cicero's writings describing a device recently constructed by our friend Posidonius, which at each revolution reproduces the same motions of the sun, moon, and planets. The Antikythera's survival was pure chance, preserved in a shipwreck that kept its gears from being melted down for weapons or coins like countless others. The mechanism's legacy lies in its bridging of disciplines. Its eclipse predictions used Babylonian arithmetic, its gear ratios reflected Egyptian geometry, and its inscriptions mirrored Greek cosmological poetry. This was no isolated invention but the apex of a Mediterranean-wide exchange of ideas, where traders, astronomers, and philosophers pooled knowledge across empires. Recent discoveries of similar gear fragments in Ephesus and Sicily suggest these devices circulated widely, their technology likely reaching the Islamic world, where 9th century astronomer Banu Musa described a geared castle clock with striking similarities. Yet the Antikythera also represents history's fragility. Its sophistication implies centuries of prior development, but nearly all traces vanished, perhaps lost in the burning of Alexandria's library or melted during Rome's collapse. For over 1,000 years after its creation, humanity would lack the technology to recreate it, a sobering reminder that progress isn't inevitable. The device's ghostly gears whisper an alternative history, one where the scientific revolution might have begun in antiquity, had these fragile threads of knowledge not frayed with time. Now, as modern engineers 3D print working replicas, we're left to wonder, what other marvels lie buried, waiting to shatter our assumptions about the ancient world's technological limits? The Antikythera doesn't just measure time, it measures the gap between what we think we know about the past and what astonishing truths might still emerge from the depths. Trade caravans didn't just carry silks and spices, they smuggled time itself across deserts and oceans. When Alexander the Great's armies marched into Egypt, they didn't just loot gold, they brought home the shadow clocks of Thebes, adapting their angled gnomons to Greek latitudes. Centuries later, Arab scholars poring over Chinese manuscripts in Baghdad's House of Wisdom encountered water clock designs so advanced they incorporated mercury to prevent freezing, a revelation that would inspire the intricate clepsydras of medieval Damascus. This was globalization in its earliest form, where sundials, star charts, and mechanical timers crossed borders not as curiosities but as coveted technologies, refined through each culture's unique genius. The Silk Road became a highway for horological innovation. Persian astronomers tweaked Indian celestial models to create more accurate lunar calendars, while Byzantine engineers combined Roman hydraulic systems with Arab gear mechanisms to power palace clocks in Constantinople. Even isolated cultures contributed. Mayan astronomers, observing Venus cycles independently, achieved calculations so precise they matched those of Babylonian sky watchers halfway across the world. But the most fascinating hybrids emerged where traditions collided. In Moorish Spain, Jewish scholars fused Arabic astrolabes with Latin sundial theory to create the torquetum, a multi-layered instrument that could convert celestial coordinates between different observational systems. Yet some societies deliberately resisted this cross-pollination, guarding timekeeping as sacred knowledge. The Inca's sex system, a network of ritual lines radiating from Cusco, doubled as a calendar so entwined with state religion that Spanish chroniclers never fully decoded it. Similarly, Aboriginal Australians maintained oral star maps encoding seasonal changes, their accuracy preserved through songlines rather than written records. These parallel developments prove that while shared knowledge accelerated progress, isolation could spark equally brilliant, if radically different, solutions. The legacy of this exchange lives on in every time zone. Your wristwatch's 60-second minute descends from Babylonian math filtered through Greek astronomy, while the gears in mechanical clocks trace their lineage to Chinese water-powered escapements adapted by Islamic engineers. Even the quartz crystal oscillating in your phone owes its precision to centuries of cumulative tinkering across continents. Timekeeping wasn't invented in one place. It was a chorus of insights, each culture tuning the other's discoveries to harmonize with their own understanding of eternity's rhythm. While our modern calendars struggle to align lunar months with solar years, the Maya solved this puzzle over 1,000 years ago with breathtaking elegance. Their calendar wasn't just a tool, it was a layered masterpiece, weaving together three distinct systems like threads in a cosmic tapestry. The Hob tracked the solar year with 365 days, divided into 18 months of 20 days each, plus a mysterious 5-day period considered highly auspicious. But the Maya didn't stop there. Alongside this solar count ran the Tzolk'in, a 260-day sacred calendar that intertwined 20-day signs with 13 numbers, creating a cycle that priests used to schedule rituals, name children, and even predict personal destinies. Picture a priest unfolding a bark paper codex, tracing the intersection of these cycles to determine the perfect day for planting maize or crowning a king. Time wasn't just measured, it was divine. What set the Maya apart was their long count calendar, a linear timeline stretching back to a mythical creation date in August of 3114 BCE. Unlike cyclical systems that repeated annually, this was a cumulative count of days known as Kayin, grouped into larger units like the Tun, 360 days, or the Biact, 144,000 days. Recent discoveries reveal they calculated astronomical events with staggering precision. Their estimate of the lunar month was just 34 seconds off modern measurements, and they tracked Venus's 584-day cycle to within 2 hours over centuries. At Capon's observatory, astronomers used narrow window slits to pinpoint the planet's reappearance, aligning temples so its light would illuminate sacred carvings on predicted dates. The genius of the Mayan system lay in its interconnectedness. A date wasn't complete without all three calendars, like August 12, 2024, might be written as 8BN, 16 Pop in the Tzolk'in and Hub. This created a unique calendar round every 52 years when all cycles realigned, celebrated with new fire ceremonies where entire cities extinguished flames to await cosmic renewal. But the Maya looked even further. Their so-called grand cycle of 13 Biactons, about 5,125 years, culminated in 2012, sparking modern doomsday myths. In reality, this was simply a reset point, like our December 31st rolling over to January 1st, proof that the Maya saw time as both infinite and cyclical. Yet for all its grandeur, Mayan timekeeping wasn't locked away in temples. Farmers used simple wooden pegs to track planting cycles, while traders marked market days with knotted cords. The calendar permeated daily life, from the timing of royal marriages to the scheduling of ball games believed to influence crop yields. Even their warfare followed celestial rhythms, with attacks timed to Venus's appearance as the morning star. This wasn't superstition but sophisticated pattern recognition, the same impulse that drives modern meteorology or economic forecasting. The Maya's legacy whispers through modern timekeeping. Their base 20 numbering system echoes in our score for 20 years, while their concept of zero, essential for long count calculations, revolutionized mathematics centuries before Europe adopted it. Most profound is their insight that time isn't a straight line but a spiral, where celestial patterns repeat with variations, much like modern chaos theory. While we've lost their holistic view of time as sacred fabric, their calculations still awe astronomers today, a testament to the power of observing not just what time is, but what it means. From these celestial vaults, we turn to something far more intimate, timekeeping not etched in stone or written in stars, but carried in the hands and hearts of everyday people. After all, not everyone had access to towering observatories or royal astronomers, yet every culture found ways to mark the moments that mattered, using tools as simple as a shadow, a whisper, or even their own breath. Long before gears and dials, the most personal timekeeping device was always within reach: the human body itself. Imagine a farmer in ancient Mesopotamia pausing mid-field, counting heartbeats to gauge how long until sunset, or a Polynesian navigator timing ocean swells by the steady rhythm of his own breath. These weren't crude estimates but finely tuned practices. Buddhist monks in Tang Dynasty China perfected one-breath meditation intervals, while Roman soldiers marched to synchronized footsteps, their paces calibrated to measure distances across empires. Even Galileo used his pulse to time pendulum swings, proof that flesh and blood were the original metronomes, the sacred and mundane intertwined in these bodily measurements. Medieval Christian monasteries divided nights into vigils, with monks waking to chant psalms at intervals marked by candle burns or their own drowsy awareness. Islamic prayer times relied on physical cues like the length of shadows cast by one's body, a practice still used in remote areas today. In West Africa, griots passed down oral histories timed to drum beats that mirrored resting heart rates, ensuring stories unfolded at the body's natural pace. This wasn't just practicality, it was timekeeping as ritual where breaths and heartbeats synchronized community life. What made these methods extraordinary was their democratic simplicity. Unlike obelisks or water clocks requiring elite knowledge, anyone could count breaths or footsteps. Japanese incense clocks were sometimes replaced by koku-dokai, where trained attendants timed hours by how long it took to recite specific verses. Sailors in the Indian Ocean estimated night watches by how many stars rose between yawns, but the true brilliance lay in hybrid systems. Persian physicians paired pulse counts with water clocks to diagnose fevers, while Mayan midwives timed contractions with knotted cords adjusted to the mother's breathing. The legacy of bodily time lingers in our language a heartbeat away, in the blink of an eye, even the second deriving from the Babylonian base 60 system likely inspired by pulse counts. Modern athletes still use rhythmic breathing to pace endurance, and musicians tap feet to keep tempo, unconsciously echoing ancient practices. These methods remind us that timekeeping began not as domination of nature but as harmony with it, where the human body wasn't just a measurer of moments but a living clock, its rhythms woven into the fabric of days. From this intimate scale, we turn to the monumental where timekeeping transcended portable devices to shape the very stones beneath our feet. Across continents, architects embedded celestial knowledge into temples and tombs, turning buildings into giant clocks that tracked solstices, equinoxes, and planetary cycles. The line between timekeeper and time itself blurred as entire cities became gears in a cosmic mechanism. Stonehenge's towering trilithons weren't just arranged for grandeur, they formed a colossal stone calendar locking the solstice sun in perfect alignment. Every June 21st, dawn light slices through the monument's heart, illuminating the altar stone like a cosmic spotlight. But this wasn't unique to Salisbury Plain. Across the Irish Sea, Newgrange's 5,000-year-old passage tomb captures the winter solstice sunrise so precisely that for 17 minutes, a narrow beam of light creeps down its 60-foot corridor to touch ancient spiral carvings in the deepest chamber. The engineering precision is staggering. These Neolithic builders adjusted the tomb's roof box opening by mere inches over generations to compensate for Earth's shifting axial tilt, a correction modern astronomers call precession. Egypt's temples took this celestial choreography to divine extremes. At Karnak, the axis of the great temple of Amun-Ra aligns so perfectly with the winter solstice sunrise that light floods through successive courtyards to bathe the god statue in golden radiance. The effect wasn't accidental. Hieroglyphs reveal priests used the Merkit instrument, a simple plumb line with a V-shaped notch, to track stars and align foundations with celestial events. Even more remarkably, the temple of Abu Simbel was engineered so that twice yearly, the rising sun would penetrate 200 feet into its depths to illuminate statues of Ramses Roman II and the gods Amun and Ra, while deliberately leaving Ptah, god of darkness, forever in shadow. These weren't just solar markers but theological statements in stone, where architecture declared pharaohs were cosmic timekeepers. Mesoamerican architects encoded even more complex calendars into their pyramids. El Castillo at Chichen Itza becomes a serpentine spectacle during equinoxes, as sunlight cascades down its steps to form an undulating shadow resembling the feathered god Kukulkan descending to Earth. But recent LiDAR scans reveal the Maya-built adjustment platforms beneath these structures, subtle modifications allowing priests to recalibrate alignments as astronomical knowledge grew. At Teotihuacan, the Street of the Dead aligns not just with the Pleiades cluster's zenith passage, but with Cerro Gordo Mountain's silhouette during key agricultural dates, layering celestial, topographic, and seasonal timekeeping into one urban design. The unpredictability of nature only spurred greater ingenuity. When volcanic eruptions clouded Central American skies for years, Maya astronomers shifted from solar to Venus-based timekeeping, reflected in the Dresden Codex's detailed eclipse warnings. In Egypt, Nilometer's step wells measuring the river's rise became backup calendars when Sirius's heliacal rising was obscured by sandstorms. Even Stonehenge's slaughter stone may have served a dual purpose. Its crushed red iron oxide would turn rainwater the color of blood during storms, creating a vivid celestial omen when alignments couldn't be observed directly. These architectural timekeepers reveal a profound truth lost in our digital age. Time wasn't abstract but woven into the physical world. Walking Angkor Wat's galleries during equinox sunrise, where shafts of light precisely frame bas-reliefs of celestial deities, or standing in Machu Picchu's Torreon as the solstice sun aligns with its trapezoidal window, you experience time as our ancestors did, not as numbers on a screen but as light moving across stone, as shadows shrinking and growing, as the very earth breathing in harmony. With the cosmos, the stones still whisper their lessons if we're willing to listen. Even the most precise celestial calculations couldn't escape a stubborn truth. The moon's cycles and the sun's journey refused to sync neatly. 12 lunar months add up to just 354 days, leaving a glaring 11-day gap between lunar and solar years. Left uncorrected, this discrepancy would send harvest festivals tumbling into winter and solstice celebrations drifting into spring. So civilizations worldwide devised ingenious patches for nature's imperfect math. The Babylonians slipped in extra months whenever their astronomers noticed barley ripening too early, while the Hebrews developed a 19-year cycle with 7 leap months, ensuring Passover always arrived with spring's first barley harvest. These weren't arbitrary tweaks but acts of cultural survival, bending time itself to keep human rituals tethered to the seasons they sacredly mark. Julius Caesar's solution was characteristically bold. After witnessing Egypt's stable solar calendar during his affair with Cleopatra, he tasked astronomer Sosigenes with overhauling Rome's chaotic lunar system. The resulting Julian calendar imposed strict solar reckoning 365 days with a leap day every 4 years, but the reform faced violent resistance. Priests accustomed to intercalating months misinterpreted the edict, creating a bizarre 3-year span with 90 extra days that left farmers cursing as taxes came due during barren winters. Yet once implemented, the system proved so reliable it governed Europe for 16 centuries, its legacy lingering in today's Gregorian calendar. East Asian astronomers approached the problem differently. China's lunisolar calendar required imperial astronomers to observe both moon phases and solar terms 24 precise points in Earth's orbit, marking seasonal shifts like awakening of insects or grain in ear. When misalignment threatened, they inserted entire leap months bearing poetic names like Intercalary Orchid Month. This dual system allowed festivals like the Lunar New Year to float within a solar framework, ensuring agricultural events stayed seasonally grounded. The parallel tracking reached its zenith in Korea's Joseon dynasty, where royal astronomers maintained a staggering 3 separate calendar systems, one for agriculture, another for rituals, and a third for celestial predictions, all synchronized through meticulous cross-referencing. What's fascinating are the cultures that rejected rigid corrections altogether. The Islamic Hijri calendar remains purely lunar, letting Ramadan migrate through the seasons over a 33-year cycle. For nomadic Bedouins, this fluidity made sense. Their timekeeping revolved around grazing patterns and water sources, not fixed harvest dates. Similarly, Pacific Islanders like the Maori measured time through ecological cues. The flowering of pohutukawa trees signaled the arrival of migratory birds, while the first appearance of Matariki Pleiades on the horizon marked the new year. Their Maramataka system wasn't a grid of dates but a living dialogue with nature, where nights were counted by sleep cycles and months by fish spawning cycles. These divergent approaches reveal a profound philosophical split. Should time conform to human needs, or should humans adapt to time's natural irregularities? The answer shaped civilizations. Rome's leap years enabled empire-wide tax collection and military campaigns, while China's dual system preserved both celestial harmony and bureaucratic order. Meanwhile, event-based timekeepers thrived in societies where flexibility outweighed synchronization, proof that there's no single, right way to reconcile our clocks with the cosmos, only countless expressions of ingenuity in the eternal dance between order and chaos. For farmers along the Nile or herders on the Mongolian steppe, time wasn't marked by ticking hands but by the rhythm of life itself, the first sprouts of barley, the arrival of monsoon rains, or the birth of a chieftain's heir. Event-based timekeeping turned milestones into measurements, where a year might mean the span between 2 locust swarms, and a day could last from one watering hole to the next. The Luo people of East Africa famously measured ages by cattle raids. A man's coming of age wasn't counted in winters but by his first successful raid, while the Inuit marked seasons by the migration patterns of caribou and the freezing of coastal ice. These systems weren't primitive, they were exquisitely adaptive, bending time to fit the needs of survival rather than the other way around. Royal courts elevated this fluidity to an art form. Ancient Egyptian dynasties reset the calendar with each new pharaoh's reign, declaring a year one that symbolized cosmic renewal. Babylonian kings dated contracts by significant events, the year the Temple of Ishtar was rebuilt, or the second year after the Great Flood. Even the Roman Republic famously dated years by consuls' names, creating phrases like, "in the consulship of Cicero and Antonius." This practice wasn't just administrative, it wove time into the fabric of collective memory, turning chronology into storytelling. A merchant in Nineveh might recall a debt was due 3 floods ago, layering temporal measurement with personal and cultural significance. The contrast with modern timekeeping couldn't be starker. Where atomic clocks now slice seconds into billionths, event-based systems embraced elasticity. The Maori of New Zealand measured nights by sleep cycles, 3 sleeps until the meeting, while Polynesian navigators counted journeys in canoe strokes, adjusting for currents and winds. This fluidity wasn't imprecision but pragmatism. When the rainy season arrived early, farmers didn't need to know it was April 7th. They needed to know the soil was ready. Similarly, Native American tribes like the Lakota tracked years through oral histories called winter counts, where each year was symbolized by a single memorable event, a meteor shower, a buffalo hunt, or an epidemic recorded on hides as both calendar and communal archive. Yet these systems shared a profound philosophical thread. Time was relational, not absolute. The Javanese Pranata Mangsa calendar divided the year into seasons based on plant and animal behaviors, when certain birds nested or specific flowers bloomed, creating an ecological clock that responded to microclimates. Tibetan nomads still measured journeys in brews. The number of times tea is boiled along a route, a unit that naturally expands in high altitudes where water takes longer to boil. These methods reveal a world view where time bends to context, a stark contrast to our modern obsession with universal standardization. The legacy of event-based time lingers in subtle ways. Farmers still plant by phenological signs like oak leaves, the size of a squirrel's ear, and fishermen track runs by water temperature rather than dates. Even our language preserves echoes. Phrases like "back in the Reagan era" or "post-9/11" function like ancient rain-based dating. Perhaps the most poignant lesson lies in how these systems honored time's subjectivity. To a parent, an hour spent waiting feels endless, while an hour laughing flies by. Ancient cultures didn't just track time, they honored its elasticity, recognizing that moments matter not because they're identically measured, but because they're meaningfully lived. This fluid approach shaped daily life in ways rigid clocks never could. A medieval European peasant might rise at first cockcrow and work until the sun touched the oak's shadow, with meals taken when hunger struck rather than at predetermined hours. Monsoons dictated Southeast Asian market days, and Native American potlatch ceremonies lasted until the host's generosity was exhausted, sometimes days or weeks. Time wasn't a tyrant but a companion, its flow dictated by human and natural rhythms rather than mechanical precision. In a world where sundials and water clocks coexisted with event-based systems, ancient societies enjoyed a temporal bilingualism. We've since lost the ability to speak both the language of stars and the poetry of lived experience. Ancient Egyptian scribes didn't just count hours, they bent them. Picture a summer day in Thebes where daylight stretched so long that each of their 12 daytime hours lasted nearly 75 of our modern minutes. Come winter, those same hours shrank to a fleeting 45, compressing like an accordion with the seasons. This wasn't inconsistency, it was brilliance. By dividing daylight and darkness into 12 equal parts regardless of length, they harmonized human activity with the sun's ever-changing arc. Temples used shadow clocks with adjustable scales, while farmers planted when the third morning hour's light hit a specific field marker, their schedules flexing with nature rather than fighting it. Medieval Europe transformed these fluid hours into something darker and more disciplined. Monks sliced nights into 7 watches, their cloisters echoing with psalms at matins, lauds, and prime. But beyond abbey walls, night watches became instruments of control. London's city gates clanged shut at curfew, marked by the great bell of St. Mary le Bow, while Venetian night patrols timed their rounds with hourglasses filled to measure 90-minute shifts. The very word watch comes from the Old English wokes, to stay awake, a reminder that timekeeping was as much about vigilance as measurement. Towers from Prague to Beijing housed drummers or bell ringers who sounded alarms against fires and invaders, turning communal time into collective security. Labor rhythms danced to these temporal divisions. Persian textile workers in Isfahan's bazaars set looms by the length of shadow stripes on courtyard tiles, while Florentine wool guilds fined members for late deliveries measured against the cathedral's sundial. The Maya took it further. Their Tzolk'in calendar scheduled not just market days, but even the rotation of beekeeping hives to coincide with flowering seasons. Timekeeping became social glue. In Mughal India, tax collectors arrived with portable sand clocks to ensure fair assessments, and Aztec couriers raced between relay stations with messages timed by incense sticks burning at fixed rates. Then came the seismic shift, when time transformed from shared rhythm to personal possession. Renaissance nobles flaunted miniature sundials as jewelry, their gold cases opening to reveal delicate ivory dials. By the 16th century, Augsburg clockmakers crafted ornate Nuremberg eggs, the first wearable watches, that dangled from aristocrats' belts like technological trophies. These weren't just tools but statements. Elizabeth I's collection included a ring watch that struck the hours, while Ottoman sultans commissioned timepieces with Arabic numerals that glowed with crushed diamond powder. The message was clear: precision timekeeping had become a privilege, its mastery signaling wealth, power, and access to the era's cutting-edge science. The democratization of hours sparked fiery debates. When factories adopted punch clocks in the 1800s, laborers rebelled against what they called the tyranny of the bell. Yet traces of ancient flexibility lingered. Italian vineyards still timed harvests by grape sugar content rather than calendars, and Swiss alpine herders measured cheese aging in moon turns. This tension between natural and mechanical time echoes in our own digital age, where atomic precision coexists with circadian science, proving our bodies still dance to ancestral rhythms written in sunlight and shadow. From sundials dividing daylight to watches dividing status, humanity's timekeeping journey reveals an unbroken thread: our eternal struggle to balance nature's fluidity with society's hunger for order. The next chapter in this story wouldn't be written in shadow or sand, but in the relentless tick of gears that sought to conquer time itself, a revolution born in the clanging forges of medieval monasteries and perfected in the workshops of Enlightenment Europe. Gilded sundials weren't just timekeepers, they were statements of power, their surfaces shimmering with gold leaf and lapis lazuli under palace torchlight. In the courts of Byzantium, a water clock became more than an instrument. It was a spectacle of diplomacy. When the Abbasid Caliph Harun al-Rashid sent Emperor Theophilos a mechanical marvel in the 9th century, its golden lions roared on the hour while silver birds sang from gilded branches, all powered by intricate hydraulics. This wasn't just engineering, it was theater designed to awe rival rulers as much as mark the hours. Across the Islamic world, royal clepsydras featured automated musicians and moving zodiac rings, their brass gears plated with precious metals to dazzle visiting ambassadors. The artisans behind these masterpieces blurred disciplines. Persian astronomer Al-Jazari's elephant clock fused Indian water mechanics, Greek gear systems, and Chinese automata into a single dazzling display, a celestial map topped with a rotating elephant carrying a mahout that struck a symbol every half hour. Meanwhile, in Renaissance Europe, sundials morphed into wearable art. Nuremberg craftsmen embedded miniature dials in rings and pendants, their tiny gnomons calibrated to the wearer's latitude. A single mistake in carving the angle could render them useless, but accuracy was secondary to their real purpose, proclaiming the owner's sophistication. Portability posed the ultimate challenge. How could a timekeeper be both precise and mobile? The solution emerged in 15th century Germany with the Nuremberg egg, a drum-shaped watch small enough to hang from a belt, its iron gears protected by engraved brass covers. These early portable clocks were notoriously unreliable, losing hours daily, yet their very existence signaled a revolution. No longer tethered to palace courtyards or temple walls, time could now travel with merchants, explorers, and generals. The legacy of these hybrid masterpieces thrives in modern haute horlogerie. Patek Philippe's celestial watches, with their rotating star charts, echo Al-Jazari's zodiac automata, while Van Cleef and Arpels' poetic complications transform time into moving art, just as Byzantine water clocks did. What began as royal propaganda now fuels a multi-billion-dollar luxury industry, where watches are still judged not just by accuracy but by their ability to astonish. The ancients would recognize this instinct instantly, that timekeeping's highest purpose was never merely measurement, but the alchemy of wonder. Merchants winding along the Silk Road didn't just carry silks and spices, they smuggled time itself in their saddlebags. Foldable ivory sundials no larger than a palm slipped into pouches beside coins, their hinged gnomons adjustable for different latitudes. Roman centurions marched with bronze, discus sundials dangling from their belts, each etched with seasonal hour lines that compensated for the sun's shifting path. These weren't just tools but lifelines. When a Carthaginian trader negotiated in a foreign port or a Mongol courier raced across the steppe, knowing the hour meant survival. The design variations reveal cultural priorities. Islamic travelers' dials often included Qibla compasses to align prayers, while Chinese folding sundials doubled as lunar calendars with notches for the moon's phases. What made these devices revolutionary was their defiance of environment. A Viking sun compass, a wooden disc with a central gnomon, could be calibrated by rotating it until shadows matched carved guidelines, allowing navigation even under the Arctic's midnight sun. Persian caravan leaders used sand glasses small enough to fit in a turban's fold, their fine desert sand flowing uniformly regardless of temperature swings that disrupted water clocks. The ingenuity extended to error correction. Some Venetian merchant dials had sliding plates to adjust for seasonal changes in the sun's altitude, while Arabic astrolabes incorporated sundial functions into their already intricate celestial maps. Yet portable timekeeping exposed a philosophical rift. While Mediterranean cultures favored linear measurements, counting down miles to the next oasis or hours until a market closed, many indigenous systems embraced cyclical time. Polynesian navigators memorized star paths as recurring stories rather than fixed coordinates, and Inca quipu knots recorded events in patterns that spiraled rather than marched forward. Tibetan prayer wheels turned in endless loops, their revolutions marking time as a circle rather than a line. Even the humble pocket sundial carried this tension. Its shadow moved in a daily arc that reset at dawn, a silent reminder that time could be both progression and return. The legacy of these travel-sized timekeepers hides in plain sight. The folding compasses of medieval explorers evolved into today's smartphone GPS, while the principle behind Viking sun compasses guides modern survival watches. Perhaps most poignant is how these devices balanced precision with poetry. A Mogul jade sundial might bear verses comparing fleeting shadows to life's transience, proving that even the most utilitarian timekeepers couldn't escape humanity's urge to find meaning in the march of moments. As we zip through time zones with atomic precision, there's still something wistful about those ancient travelers who measured journeys not in minutes but in shadows creeping across carved ivory, their timepieces as much works of art as instruments of measurement. Ancient Hindu scriptures didn't just describe time, they envisioned it as a cosmic dancer, endlessly repeating its movements in cycles called kalpas, each lasting over 4 billion earthly years. This wasn't mere mythology but a profound recognition of nature's patterns, seasons returning, generations rising and fading, even the universe itself breathing in and out through creation and destruction. The Buddhist concept of samsara mirrored this, seeing time as a wheel where souls reincarnated until achieving enlightenment. Contrast this with the Mayan calendar round, where 52-year cycles weren't mere repetitions but spirals, each iteration carrying subtle variations like agricultural knowledge refined over generations. These weren't primitive notions but sophisticated observations that time moved in layered rhythms, where the past wasn't gone but echoed in the present. The linear time of Abrahamic traditions introduced a radically different metaphor, an arrow shot from creation toward apocalypse. Jewish prophets like Daniel divided history into predetermined epochs, while Christianity's Anno Domini system, pioneered by 6th century monk Dionysius Exiguus, imposed a numbered timeline marching toward Judgment Day. This worldview transformed how societies planned. Where a Hindu farmer might see droughts as part of nature's cycle, a medieval European monk interpreted plagues as divine milestones on the path to salvation. The linear model enabled long-term projects, cathedrals taking centuries to build, dynasties tracing lineage through unbroken years, but at a cost, the anxiety of time as a finite resource, slipping irreversibly away. Accuracy wasn't the primary goal for cyclical timekeepers. The Vedic Yuga system divided epochs with mathematical precision, yet its 4 ages, from golden Satya Yuga to chaotic Kali Yuga, served moral instruction more than historical record. Similarly, Aztec sunstones predicted cosmic cycles ending in catastrophe unless rituals appeased the gods. These systems excelled at synchronizing human activity with natural rhythms but struggled with cumulative timelines. Meanwhile, linear timekeepers like the Roman Julian calendar could track decades for tax collection or military campaigns, yet their rigid solar years often drifted from lunar religious observances, requiring awkward corrections. The tension between these philosophies lingers today. Modern atomic clocks measure seconds with near-perfect precision, yet we still speak of life cycles and history repeating. Agricultural regions unconsciously follow cyclical time. Vineyards harvest not by calendar dates, but when grapes reach perfect brix levels, while financial markets impose linear deadlines on everything from quarterly reports to bond maturities. Perhaps the ancients were onto something we've forgotten. That time isn't just a measurement but a relationship, shaped as much by the crops we grow and the stories we tell as by the gears in our watches. Their greatest insight wasn't in tracking hours but in recognizing that how we frame time ultimately frames what it means to be human. Even the most ingenious ancient timekeepers wrestled with nature's stubborn unpredictability. A Babylonian sundial might track midday shadows with razor precision, but let clouds roll in or night fall, and its stone face became as useless as a compass in a magnet factory. Water clocks fared no better. Clepsydras in northern climates turned into frozen sculptures come winter, their once steady drips halted by ice, and those elegant candle clocks. A single draft could make an hour's wax vanish in 40 minutes, while incense sticks burned faster in dry desert air than humid river valleys. These weren't flaws but invitations, challenges that spurred civilizations to layer method upon method, creating safety nets against time's elusiveness. The Antikythera Mechanism stands as dazzling proof of what ancient engineers could achieve when precision became paramount. This bronze wonder calculated celestial movements with a margin of error under 1 degree per century, outperforming medieval clocks by a millennium. Yet for every Antikythera, there were countless simpler devices compensating for each other's weaknesses. The Chinese combined water clocks with incense burners so temple rituals continued when temperatures plummeted, while Arab astronomers paired sundials with astrolabes to cross-check readings. This redundancy wasn't inefficiency but wisdom, an acknowledgement that no single system could conquer time's whims alone. Seasonal shifts posed particularly thorny problems. Egyptian shadow clocks required different hour markings for summer and winter, their scales fanning out like sun rays to accommodate the sun's wandering path. The Romans took this further, designing portable sundials with adjustable gnomons. Travelers could tilt based on latitude, an ancient version of resetting your watch for time zones. But the most creative fixes emerged where conditions were harshest. Inuit hunters used frozen seal oil lamps as rudimentary candle clocks, knowing the fat burned at predictable rates even in Arctic blizzards, while Saharan nomads timed journeys by how many dates a camel could eat before sunset. What's often overlooked is how these limitations shaped culture itself. The Mayas' obsession with Venus cycles stemmed partly from its reliability compared to cloud-prone solar observations. Buddhist monasteries developed intricate bell-ringing schedules because incense clocks burned too irregularly for synchronized meditation. Even modern remnants persist. The word dial in sundial evolved into telephone dials because both involved circular motions, while the concept of banker's hours traces back to medieval money lenders relying on unreliable town clocks. These weren't just technical hurdles but catalysts that made societies more observant, more adaptable. The true legacy of ancient timekeeping lies not in perfection but in relentless improvement. Each cracked water clock seal led to better gaskets. Every frozen gear inspired new alloys. When mechanical clocks finally emerged in medieval Europe, they didn't spring from nothing. They stood atop 3,000 years of cumulative tinkering, from Babylonian gear ratios to Chinese escapements. That first tower clock in Milan, its heartbeat was the same as a clepsydra's drip, its gears direct descendants of the Antikythera's wheels. The ancients may not have invented the pendulum, but they discovered something far more profound: that humanity's relationship with time isn't about control, but about conversation, a never-ending dialogue between our dreams of precision and the beautiful, messy reality of living in an imperfect universe. The ticking heartbeat of modern clocks didn't spring from nothing. It grew from seeds planted by ancient shadow watchers and water clock engineers. When medieval European monks first built mechanical tower clocks in the 1300s, they were standing on 3,000 years of accumulated wisdom. Those early iron gears biting together in cathedral bell towers, their teeth were shaped by Babylonian mathematics, the swinging pendulum Galileo later perfected. Its rhythm echoed Egyptian water clocks measuring nocturnal hours. Even today's atomic clocks, slicing seconds into billions of vibrations, still dance to nature's tune, counting the oscillations of cesium atoms with the same reverence Babylonian priests once counted lunar cycles. What's extraordinary isn't just the technological evolution, but the unbroken thread of human curiosity tying it all together. The escapement mechanism, that clever device that lets a clock's gears advance in precise increments, was foreshadowed by Chinese water clocks as early as the 8th century, where buckets tipped at measured intervals to ring gongs. The concept of standardized hours traveled from ancient Egypt through Islamic astronomers to medieval Europe, where mechanical clocks finally made them audible to entire towns with each booming chime. Every innovation built on what came before. Sundials inspired gear ratios, water pressure studies led to pendulum physics, and celestial observations paved the way for GPS satellites. Yet for all our atomic precision, we're still chasing what the ancients sought, not just to measure time, but to understand our place within it. The Maya tracked Venus cycles to align sacred ceremonies, while modern physicists use atomic clocks to test Einstein's theory of relativity. Different tools, same essential quest. Your smartphone's world clock showing times across continents. That global synchronization began with sailors carrying precise chronometers to calculate longitude, a direct descendant of portable sundials Roman soldiers once carried. Even the quartz crystal in your watch vibrates at a fixed frequency, mirroring how ancient water clocks relied on water's consistent flow. This legacy matters because timekeeping was never just about clocks, it's about how we organize existence. When medieval monasteries rang bells to structure prayer, they were continuing the tradition of Egyptian star clocks regulating temple rituals. The 9-to-5 workday owes its shape to industrial-era punch clocks, which themselves evolved from incense sticks timing shifts in Song dynasty factories. By tracing this lineage, we see how civilizations gradually transformed nature's rhythms into social contracts, from farmers planting by solstice markers to trains running on standardized time zones. The most profound lesson lies in what we've gained and lost. Ancient sundials forced people to notice the sun's arc, tying them to seasonal cycles we now ignore under electric lights. But modern precision gives us heart transplants coordinated across time zones and space telescopes synchronized to picoseconds. Perhaps the ideal balance was struck by those medieval clockmakers who adorned their gears with celestial maps reminding viewers that even as humans mastered time's measurement, its true meaning still revolved around the stars. So the next time your smartwatch buzzes with a notification, remember, you're participating in humanity's oldest continuous experiment. That tiny device on your wrist contains more than silicon and glass. It carries the accumulated wonder of every culture that ever tracked shadows, counted heartbeats, or gazed at the night sky and asked, when? The answer keeps evolving, but the question remains eternal. Ancient civilizations didn't just track time, they danced with it, weaving their days into the fabric of the natural world in ways that feel almost revolutionary today. When Egyptian farmers planted crops by Sirius's rise or Polynesian navigators sailed by star paths, they weren't just measuring hours, they were participating in a dialogue with the Earth itself. This harmony holds urgent lessons for our modern race against the clock, where screens dictate our rhythms and notifications fracture our attention. The Maya didn't need productivity apps to align their calendars with May cycles, and Inuit hunters didn't fight winter's darkness, they adapted to it, using seal oil lamps as organic timers. These cultures understood something we've forgotten. That time isn't just a resource to exploit, but a rhythm to inhabit. Consider the Japanese concept of toki, where daylight was divided into 6 fluid segments named for natural events: rabbit hour at dawn, crow hour at dusk. Unlike our rigid 9-to-5 grind, this system honored the body's innate responses to light and season. Modern chronobiology confirms their intuition. Our circadian rhythms naturally expand in summer's long days and contract in winter's gloom, yet we force ourselves into unvarying schedules under artificial light. The ancient Greeks had a water clock for courtroom speeches, but they also had hora, the root of hour, which originally meant the right moment, not just any moment. Their sundials measured when to rest as carefully as when to work, carving symposium hours into stone alongside market hours. Sustainability wasn't an abstract ideal but baked into every method. Babylonian astronomers reused clay tablets for eclipse calculations, scraping old records to document new ones. The Aztecs rebuilt their sun stone not with rare metals but volcanic rock, while Tibetan monks still craft butter lamp clocks from local yak butter. Compare this to today's planned obsolescent smartwatches discarded for newer models, their lithium batteries leaching into soil. Ancient timekeepers worked with what surrounded them: shadows, water, stars. Their tools didn't demand factories or fossil fuels but observation and patience, offering a blueprint for low-tech resilience in an era of climate crisis. Yet this isn't about rejecting technology, it's about recalibrating our relationship with it. The Antikythera Mechanism proves ancients weren't technophobes. They were pioneers who blended innovation with ecological wisdom. Imagine a modern clock that adjusts its tempo with the seasons, or a calendar app that syncs with your local harvest times instead of arbitrary fiscal quarters. Some are already rediscovering these rhythms. Chronobiologists advocate for seasonal school start times, while farmers' markets revive event-based timekeeping, meet when the strawberries ripen. Even Silicon Valley elites are ditching smartwatches for sundial gardens, seeking what the Romans called otium, leisure that restores rather than depletes. The greatest myth isn't that ancient methods were primitive, it's that progress means abandoning them entirely. Those water clocks and star maps weren't just tools, they were teachers. They whispered that efficiency shouldn't come at the cost of connection, that precision needn't divorce us from the pulse of the living world. As we stand at the crossroads of AI and atomic clocks, their legacy offers a compass not to take us backward, but to help us move forward with wisdom as enduring as the stars they once traced. Now let's untangle fact from fiction. Popular culture paints ancient timekeeping as either mystically accurate or hopelessly crude, but the truth, as always, is far more fascinating. Hollywood loves to paint ancient civilizations as stumbling through time, barely able to tell sunrise from sunset, but nothing could be further from the truth. The reality is that our ancestors engineered timekeeping solutions so elegant, they put some modern gadgets to shame. Take the common myth that sundials were crude sticks in the dirt. In truth, Egyptian shadow clocks from 3,500 years ago could track hours with error margins under 15 minutes, their gnomons angled precisely for latitude. And while we imagine medieval monks guessing at prayer times, their candle clocks often burned within 7% accuracy of modern mechanical clocks, with notched tapers calibrated to specific wax blends for consistent burn rates. The diversity of these systems shatters another misconception, that timekeeping evolved in a straight line from primitive to advanced. In reality, cultures developed radically different tools based on their needs and environments. The Mayas' obsession with Venus cycles produced eclipse predictions more accurate than anything Europe had until the Renaissance, while Inuit hunters used no clocks at all, instead tracking tidal patterns and seal breathing holes through generations of oral knowledge. Neither approach was better, just perfectly adapted to its context. Even the famed Antikythera Mechanism, often called an ancient computer, wasn't a fluke. Recent excavations suggest similar devices were likely commonplace among Mediterranean astronomers, their complexity lost only because bronze gears were so often melted down for weapons or coins. What's most startling is how these methods hold up under modern scrutiny. Researchers testing reproductions of Chinese incense clocks found certain sandalwood blends burned at near mathematical consistency, with segmented bamboo holders functioning like organic gear systems. When a team rebuilt a 9th century Baghdad water clock using original manuscripts, its automated puppets and chiming mechanisms kept time within 10 minutes per day, comparable to early pendulum clocks. These weren't lucky accidents but products of meticulous observation. Babylonian astronomers logged eclipse cycles for centuries to refine their Saros cycle predictions, while Polynesian navigators memorized star paths with such precision that their mental star compasses could pinpoint islands across thousands of miles of open ocean. The real revelation isn't just their accuracy, it's their philosophy. Ancient timekeepers saw measurement as collaboration with nature rather than domination. A Roman farmer using temporal hours accepted that midday in winter lasted 40 modern minutes while summers stretched to 75, adjusting his rhythms rather than fighting the seasons. Compare this to our modern frustration when daylight saving time disrupts sleep cycles, or the way artificial lighting overrides circadian biology. There's wisdom in that old flexibility, evidence that the ancients understood something we've forgotten. That time isn't just numbers on a screen, but a living relationship between earth, sky, and human ingenuity. Want to experience this firsthand? Visit Newgrange in Ireland during winter solstice, where dawn light still pierces the 5,000-year-old passage tomb's roof box with laser-like precision. Or try making a simple clepsydra, just 2 containers and a measured hole. to feel how water's steady flow creates rhythm from chaos. Better yet, step outside tonight and locate Polaris. You're using the same star-based navigation that guided Phoenician traders 3 millennia ago. These methods aren't relics, they're invitations to rejoin a conversation with time that began long before the first ticking clock, one where shadows and stars were more than measurements, they were teachers. Rebuilding ancient timekeepers isn't just an academic exercise, it's a hands-on conversation with history. Picture a team of archaeologists and engineers huddled over a clay pot in a Cambridge workshop, carefully drilling a hole to match the flow rate described in a 9th century Arabic manuscript. Nearby, a sundial enthusiast chisels limestone to recreate the angle of an Egyptian obelisk shadow, testing it against smartphone apps that simulate the sun's path in antiquity. These reconstructions blur the line between past and present, transforming abstract concepts into something you can touch, hear, and even smell, like the earthy scent of wet clay in a newly fired water clock or the tang of bronze gears in a replica Antikythera mechanism. Museums have become time travel laboratories. The Heraklion Archaeological Museum in Crete lets visitors operate a working Minoan water clock, its steady drip echoing through galleries like a heartbeat from 3,000 years ago. Across the Atlantic, the Mayan World Museum of Merida displays a functional reconstruction of the Dresden Codex's Venus calendar, its gears synced to the planet's actual cycle. But you don't need a lab coat to participate. Hobbyists worldwide are reviving these techniques, like the Japanese woodworker crafting Edo period incense clocks using traditional joinery, or the Minnesota teacher whose students built Roman sundials from pizza boxes, discovering how latitude affects shadow angles through melted cheese and cardboard. Digital tools are amplifying this revival. Apps like Shadow Dial overlay ancient hour lines onto your smartphone camera, letting you tell time as the Greeks did by pointing your phone at the sun. Virtual reality reconstructions of Stonehenge allow users to witness solstice alignments from inside the stone circle, while 3D printed fragments of the Antikythera mechanism let amateurs assemble working replicas on their kitchen tables. These aren't just gimmicks, they're bridges. When you adjust a replica clepsydra's flow to match Plutarch's descriptions of courtroom timings, or calibrate a star chart apt to the same stars Babylonian priests tracked, you're not just learning history. You're experiencing the same frustrations and eureka moments as the original inventors. The true magic happens when these reconstructions reveal forgotten wisdom. A team rebuilding a Song Dynasty incense clock discovered the original sandalwood resin blend burned with near metronomic consistency, a fireproof recipe lost for centuries. Another group testing Egyptian shadow clocks found their inefficient seasonal hours actually reduced heat exposure during summer fieldwork, proving ancient designs prioritized human comfort over rigid precision. Even failed experiments teach us something. When a Viking sun compass replica proved unreliable in cloudy conditions, it explained why Norse sagas emphasize waiting for clear skies before navigating. This hands-on history does more than satisfy curiosity, it rewires how we see time itself. Turning the crank on a replica medieval clock tower, you feel the weight of centuries in each rotation, hearing the same metallic groan that organized medieval towns. Smelling the beeswax of a candle clock transports you to a Benedictine scriptorium, where monks copied manuscripts by flickering light measured in prayerful increments. These sensations forge an emotional connection no textbook can match, reminding us that every second we count today was first marked by someone's shadow, someone's breath, someone's patient observation of the turning world. Perhaps the greatest lesson lies in the imperfections. When your homemade water clock runs fast because the jar's mouth isn't perfectly smooth, or your sundial's noon mark misses by a hand's width, you're confronting the same challenges ancient inventors faced. In an age of atomic precision, there's humility in realizing how much effort it took to simply know when to plant seeds or when to call a council meeting. These reconstructions don't just teach us how time was measured, they reveal why it mattered and how deeply its rhythms were once woven into the fabric of being human. As we pack away these replicas and close the history books, one question lingers. In our race to perfect timekeeping, have we gained more than we've lost? The answer might lie not in the gears of our watches, but in the quiet spaces between ticks, in moments where we still tell time by a child's laughter, the scent of rain on dry earth, or the slow lengthening of shadows across a familiar wall. The ancients understood something we're only now remembering. That time isn't just something to measure, but something to live. Timekeeping has never just been about measuring hours. It's a mirror reflecting humanity's deepest ambitions, fears, and values. Consider the humble sundial, a simple shadow caster, yet in ancient Rome, its presence in a villa signaled not just punctuality but philosophical sophistication. The wealthy who commissioned intricate portable sundials weren't merely buying tools. They were purchasing alignment with celestial order, a tangible connection to the cosmos. Fast forward to medieval Europe, where towering cathedral clocks didn't just mark canonical hours, they proclaimed divine authority over daily life, their chimes echoing the belief that time itself was a sacred gift to be managed wisely. Each innovation, from water clocks to atomic oscillations, reveals what a culture prioritizes: precision for navigation, harmony with nature, or control over chaos. The spiritual dimension runs even deeper. Hindu cosmology envisioned time as a wheel, endlessly turning through cycles of creation and destruction, a concept mirrored in the Mayan calendar round, where dates repeated every 52 years, offering cosmic second chances. Contrast this with the linear time of Abrahamic traditions, where history marches toward redemption or judgment. These frameworks weren't abstract theories, they shaped laws, rituals, and even warfare. Aztec priests timed battles to astrological alignments, while Benedictine monks structured their days around prayer intervals, believing disciplined schedules could elevate the soul. Timekeeping, in essence, became a language for speaking with the divine, yet the most profound lessons lie in the tension between natural rhythms and human ingenuity. Ancient farmers planting by the Pleiades rise, or Inuit hunters tracking seal migrations by ice patterns remind us that time was once a dialogue with the environment, not a dictator. Modern life, with its rigid schedules and artificial lighting, has severed this connection, but the cost is becoming clearer. Chronobiologists now confirm what sundial watchers knew instinctively. Our bodies thrive on flexible, light-responsive rhythms, not the unyielding tick of digital clocks. The resurgence of circadian lighting and seasonal work schedules hints at a quiet return to ancestral wisdom, blending atomic precision with ecological awareness. What endures across millennia isn't just technology, but the universal urge to find meaning in time's passage. The same stars that guided Polynesian navigators now calibrate satellite arrays, and the Babylonian Base 60 system still structures our minutes and seconds. When you glance at your smartwatch, you're invoking the cumulative genius of every culture that ever tracked a shadow or counted a heartbeat. The true legacy of ancient timekeepers isn't in their devices but in their vision. That measuring time is ultimately about understanding our place in something vast and eternal. Their greatest gift was teaching us to see time not as a foe to conquer, but as a story we're all helping to tell, one fleeting moment at a time. The ancient world's timekeepers didn't just measure moments, they wove time into the very fabric of existence, turning celestial movements into the heartbeat of civilizations. Picture a Babylonian astronomer etching eclipse predictions into clay under lamplight, or a Polynesian navigator chanting star paths to guide a canoe across uncharted waters. These weren't just tools, they were acts of reverence, a dialogue between humanity and the cosmos. What's astonishing isn't merely their accuracy, though a Maya Venus table's precision still stuns astronomers, but how these systems embodied each culture's worldview. The Egyptians saw time as a serpent swallowing its tail, the Greeks as a chariot racing across the sky, while the Inca visualized it as a spiral where past and future intertwined like the threads of a quipu cord. Reconstructing these methods does more than satisfy historical curiosity. It reawakens a way of being that modern life has buried. Imagine pausing to check the hour not by glancing at your phone, but by watching the shadow of a tree sweep across carved stones in your garden. Or marking the seasons not by calendar alerts, but by the evening appearance of the Pleiades cluster. There's a quiet wisdom in these rhythms, a reminder that time was once felt rather than counted, lived rather than managed. The water clocks of Damascus, the candle-marked vigils of medieval monks, the incense coils of Kyoto's temples all whisper the same truth. Timekeeping began as an art before it became a science. Yet this isn't just about nostalgia. The flaws in ancient systems, sundials silenced by clouds, water clocks frozen in winter, reveal something profound about human adaptability. When one method failed, another stepped in. Fire for darkness, stars for solstices, even the human pulse for fleeting intervals. This resilience mirrors our own era's challenges, where digital burnout pushes many to seek analog alternatives. Perhaps that's why sundial gardens are sprouting in tech hubs, or why lunar phase apps top download charts. We're relearning what the ancients knew, that time's true measure isn't in ticks but in tides, not in notifications but in nourishment. So the next time you feel enslaved by the clock, remember the obelisks that turned sunlight into ceremony, or the Tibetan prayer wheels spinning like celestial gears. These forgotten systems offer more than historical insight. They're an invitation to reclaim time as something sacred, fluid, and deeply human. Press pause on the relentless scroll of modern life, even briefly, and let the shadows lengthen as they may. After all, the first timekeepers didn't chase efficiency, they sought meaning. And in that pursuit, they left us not just tools, but timeless lessons. If this journey through the ages has sparked your curiosity, share in the comments which ancient method resonated most with you. Could you navigate a day by candle marks or star paths? For more explorations into history's hidden wonders, don't forget to subscribe. Until our next adventure, may your time be measured not just in hours, but